we go through a lot of plot twists in life, just like the one that we watched on the video. Just like how I said last week that the plot twists make stories more engaging and very interesting, the plot twists that we can find in our lives often give us different emotions. For example, if you're walking on the street and then you suddenly find $20 lying on the ground, how would you feel? Well, some people might feel happy and excited like Christopher, whereas another person might feel uneasy about taking someone else's lost money. And whichever emotion you may feel, these kinds of unexpected events in life, they often trigger you to have different emotions. You feel something, right? And it could be, awesomeness, it could be disappointment, or it could even be like confusion. What do I do here, right? And whatever emotions you might have, these sudden turns in life often leaves us with emotional imprints. Then I want to know how you guys would react to these different situations. We're going to do a little survey together, and you just need to show me how you would feel by giving me some hand gestures, okay? So I'm going to give you a few statements, and for each statement, you have to either give me a thumbs up, a thumbs down, gasping with hands on the face, and the Asian heart thing, the Korean heart, finger heart thing, or scratching your head in confusion. So for example, if I say, you walk on the street and you find $5 on the ground, if you would feel confused, you can just show me this, right? What do I do with this $5? Or you can just, if you would feel awesome, you can do like a thumbs up or like a finger heart, or whatever, So I'm going to give you some statements, and you're going to give me some of the signs, okay? So let's do it together. Number 1, you wake up to learn that your phone did not charge overnight. Come on, guys, I need more than that, okay? Number 2, your parents tell you that you're moving. Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, number 3, your dog or your cat learns to talk and tells you that your breath stinks. Yeah, let's go, Christopher, yeah. Okay, number 4, your crush likes your most recent post on Instagram. I would be horrified. Anyways, number 5, you turn on the news and see your friend getting interviewed. Where's Noah? Noah's not here? Okay, number 6, you win free tickets to a show that you've always wanted to see. Yeah. Number 7, you win free tickets to a show that you've never heard of. Okay. Number 8, your best friend tells you that they are sick of you. Okay, last one. This one, I find it very hard to grasp, but last one, let's do this. You find out that you are allergic to your favorite food. Bro, that's insane. Anyways. Okay. Like so, when we come across these daily plot twists in life, sudden turns in life, we get different feelings, right? We get different emotions. Some are positive and some are negative. But as we grow older and older, you're going to start noticing how some of these plot twists leave us feeling like we've run out of options. Because they are too harsh. It might leave us to feel that our lives are ruined beyond repair. I myself experienced this feeling many times in the past, and the most recent one, of course, was when I lost my first son. Well, my wife gave, recently, 2 weeks ago, my wife gave birth to our second daughter, but when I lost the first son, I was devastated, right? For the fact that he's going to never come back to life again, I was hopeless, and I was devastated. And it was a plot twist for me as well. And of course, it took some time to sink in, but when I finally came to a realization that my son is gone for good, he's not going to come back to me, I suffered a deep sorrow and resentment about my life. So, you might have experienced a very painful plot twist in your life. You might have worked so hard to achieve a goal, but still failed. You might have learned new information that made you realize that the world is a lot more broken than you thought. You might have watched the relationship fall apart no matter how hard you try to salvage it. And sometimes we face these plot twists in life, and they often leave us to feel vulnerable because they seem to be broken beyond repair, completely hopeless. And it often leaves us with utter hopelessness. But guys, did you know that the Bible tells us that us humans are naturally broken beyond repair? That's why we go through a lot of pain in life, whether we like it or not, right? And when we face these difficult situations, we usually think that it's weird for us to go through these things. But as a matter of fact, the Bible speaks the truth and tells us that we live in a very broken reality where sin dominates. And because of the power of that sin, all humans ought to suffer, whether they are wealthy, whether they are good looking, or whether they are very smart. Because of the sin that we all have, we have drifted away from the proper way of living, which is the godly way of living. And this broken condition keeps all of us to contribute towards violence and injustice in the world, right? For instance, you might think that you're a very good person, right? But if you really, really dig deeper into your heart, you're going to discover how self-centered you are and how it is impossible for you to fix that by yourself. When I first came to Vaughan High C 4.5 years ago, there was a separate High C KM worship in the other room there, where the Korean-speaking students would worship fully in Korean. It was relatively small in size compared to, English-speaking ministry, so I could clearly see that the students there were being neglected by church in general, And during the pandemic, it kind of became impossible to carry on with their own worship, so we ended up joining both KM and EM together. That's why we see EM students and KM students here. But before the pandemic, they had their own community of worship, which was, awesome. I found that awesome. And I believe, Ibin, Hannah, nice, and Sungmin, and who else? Angela, I think. They were all there. They used to go there. Anyways, when I first came to Vaughan and saw these bunch of KM kids, being neglected, I felt really bad. I felt horrible. I could say that God made me to feel compassionate towards them. So what I did was I asked Rev Jong, I don't know if you guys remember Rev Jong, I asked Rev Jong that I wanted to do a 6-week series of discipleship training with just them, so they could get spiritually fed by a pastor. And I think there were about 7 students who attended, and we all had a great time learning the Word of God and acquiring knowledge on basic Christian doctrine. Well, I could call it an intensive course on what we do on Fridays these days. So that's what we did. But here's the thing. What do you think was the very first thing that I talked about during this course? On the very first session, I explained how all humans are completely broken because of Adam's sin. And because of Adam's disobedience, we ended up being all messed up. You and I are all messed up people, right? No matter how hard we try There are always people who are marginalized and hurt, including in High C. I see some people being marginalized, which is terrible. But we just can't help because we're all messed up. Us humans thought we could create a perfect place on earth by being competent, by working hard. But more we tried, what happened? We ended up creating more problems. We created poverty. We created segregation. We created discrimination. We created hate crimes. And we also created a huge wealth gap in between people. And after explaining all these things, I told the students that the very first step in becoming a true Christian is to embrace this reality, to accept that this is true. Instead of denying that all humans are sinful, I'm not as bad as them. Instead of denying that, we have to accept, that we are all sinners. That's what I told them. Sounds quite depressing to be a Christian, doesn't it? Well, let me make this even more depressing for you. I know it's Easter, but let me make it even more depressing for you. Adding on to this already messed up reality, Jesus, who was the very hope for many, many people back in ancient Israel, was betrayed, not just by strangers, but also by his close companions, such as Judas and Peter, and the rest of the disciples, really. And as a result of those betrayals, Jesus was arrested. And then charges were invented against him, and he was unjustly sentenced to death. Even though he wasn't a criminal, what happened to Jesus was horrifying. And just because he intimidated the people who were in power back in ancient Israel, he ended up getting tortured and killed by the authorities. And this news about Jesus' death must have made his friends to suffer big time. They knew Jesus as someone who healed the broken, who set free those in bondage, and the one who redeemed what was lost. The world was already messed up, and people could finally see a stream of hope from Jesus because he was amazing. But what they got in return was what? A complete hopelessness, because their hope, Jesus, ended up dying on a cross, helplessly, tortured. So to the eyes of the Jesus followers back then, the story seemed to be over. It was a game over for them. Jesus' enemies seemed to have won. Sin seemed to have won. Devil, Satan, seemed to have won. And Jesus seemed to have lost. And that was where we stopped on Good Friday, right? Very depressing. But guys, was this the end? Well, just like any good stories, Jesus' story does not end in a depressing way. While everyone saw death seemingly having the last word, Jesus saw a plot twist coming that no one else predicted. And this plot twist is beyond our human comprehension. We cannot fathom with our own brains because it's amazing. It's way too great, right? So let me read John 20, verses 15 to 16. It says, "Woman," he said, "why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. So completely flipping the table, Jesus comes back from the dead and he shows himself to Mary. And this wasn't a hallucination or showing up in a ghostly form. No, the Bible says that the disciples could actually touch and feel Jesus' new physical body. And while our logic says that no human can ever come back to life physically, Jesus defied that logic and resurrected from the dead. So he defeated death and he came back alive. You know, while I was studying theology at Knox College a few years back, there were times when my faith was shaken to the core. I probably shared about this with you guys many, many times, but this is a different reason why my faith was shaken to the core. By reading lots of theological papers and books, I slowly began to be influenced by some of the progressive theologians who deny the true bodily resurrection of Jesus. So their writings claim that as long as we believe in the spiritual resurrection of Jesus Christ, then we are saved. That's what they said. That's what they wrote. Right? And more I read those writings, my logic began to tell me that they are right in some sense. Because we've never seen anyone come back to life in the entire human history, my logic began to doubt that the gospel writers must have elaborated a bit too much just to make their point. So my faith was obviously being shaken, and I didn't know what to do about it. But after wrestling with these thoughts for a while, God allowed me to realize that I was going too far with this idea. So through reading one of the pastor's posts on Facebook, God turned me around, gave me faith to believe in Jesus' bodily resurrection, because without believing it, hear me out, without believing that, we would not be called Christians. So here it says, without believing in Jesus' bodily resurrection, not spiritual resurrection, bodily resurrection, we wouldn't be Christians. And from that day onwards, my faith was rooted again in Jesus' bodily resurrection, and has never shaken ever since. And this good news, guys, this good news still empowers me. It empowers me to live through the painful reality. You remember what I said about our reality being completely broken? But this truth helps me to overcome the painful reality that we're facing every day. Jesus' miraculous resurrection helped me to overcome the death of my baby. His power of resurrection helped me to persevere through the financial difficulties that I faced at times. And his mighty resurrection helped me to put up with the hurt that I received by difficult people around me. So guys, I really want to encourage you to believe in the same truth. In the midst of death, grief, and hopelessness, Jesus has the power to change the story by bringing life and hope into dead and hopeless places. That's why it's called the good news, guys. That's why it's called good news, the gospel. So if you see brokenness in your life, whether it be your family, whether it be your friendship, your personal spiritual walk, or whatever, even your study, whatever, ask God to restore what is broken through the power of Jesus' resurrection. You don't have to do it on your own. Whenever you feel scary or overwhelmed by the brokenness that are around you, you can simply ask God to help you bring new life into the things that are broken. Yes, of course, it may take time. It may take time. But through the same power that conquered the grave, he can conquer all of your brokenness in life as well. So Haisi, would you join me in a prayer today? If you have brokenness in your life, why don't you take a moment to ask God to help you? If you think you're fine with your life for now, then let's join God in restoring what is broken around you. Even though only Jesus can conquer sin and death, he can bring life into things through you and me as well. So I want you to take some time right now to pray to God. Ask God to restore your brokenness. And also ask God to help you so you can be the vessel to restore the broken things out in the world. So I see, let's just take some time to pray to God individually.